Imagine a civilization so advanced they could predict eclipses thousands of years in the future, built massive pyramids without metal tools, and developed the only fully written language in pre-Columbian America. Now imagine that within just a few decades, 90% of their population simply vanished. This isn't science fiction. This is the true story of one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries, the collapse of the Maya civilization. Around 900 CE, cities that had thrived for over 1,000 years were suddenly abandoned. Millions of people disappeared. Entire bloodlines of kings ended overnight. If you're fascinated by unsolved historical mysteries and civilizations that seem to have knowledge beyond their time, you need to subscribe and hit that bell icon right now, because what we're about to uncover will challenge everything you think you know about ancient history. Welcome back to Veil OD History, where we dive deep into history's darkest secrets and most perplexing mysteries. Today we're exploring one of archaeology's most haunting questions. How does a civilization that reaches the heights of human achievement suddenly collapse and disappear? The Maya weren't just another ancient civilization. They were mathematical geniuses who invented the concept of zero independently. They were astronomers who tracked celestial movements with precision that rivals modern computers. They were engineers who built cities in impossible jungle terrain. They were artists who created works of beauty that still take our breath away. And then, in less than a century, it all ended. Cities were abandoned mid-construction. Royal palaces were left to the jungle. Sacred temples fell silent. The most advanced civilization in the Americas simply walked away from everything they had built. But here's what's truly disturbing, and I want you to think about this and share your thoughts in the comments below. The Maya didn't just disappear. They left behind clues, warnings carved in stone, prophecies about cycles of destruction, messages that some scholars believe were meant for us. So let's journey into the heart of the Mesoamerican jungle and uncover the truth behind one of history's greatest mysteries. Because the fall of the Maya isn't just ancient history, it might be a warning about our own civilization's future. Across an area larger than modern Germany, encompassing dense jungles, highland mountains, and coastal plains, Maya cities weren't simple settlements. They were urban marvels that rival anything built in the ancient world. Tikal, a metropolis of over 100,000 people, featuring pyramids that rose over 200 feet above the jungle canopy. The city covered 575 square kilometers and contained over 3,000 structures dating from 600 BCE to 900 CE. Calakmul, a massive urban complex that archaeologists are still uncovering, with structures so large they're visible from space. Karakul, home to over 140,000 people at its peak, making it larger than any Maya city and larger than most European cities of the time. But what made the Maya truly extraordinary wasn't just their cities, it was their knowledge. The Maya independently invented the concept of zero, a mathematical breakthrough that most of the world wouldn't achieve for centuries. They developed a sophisticated number system that allowed them to calculate dates millions of years into the past and future. Maya astronomers tracked the movements of Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn with incredible precision. They calculated the length of the solar year to 365.242 days, accurate to within 17 seconds of the actual length. Their eclipse prediction tables were so accurate they could forecast eclipses occurring 400 years in the future. Working without metal tools, wheels, or beasts of burden, the Maya moved massive stone blocks weighing several tons and fitted them together with precision that amazes modern engineers. They built elaborate water management systems, including reservoirs, canals, and underground cisterns that sustained massive populations in areas with no natural water sources. The Maya developed the most sophisticated writing system in pre-Columbian America, a complex combination of logograms and syllabic symbols that could express any thought or concept. They left behind thousands of inscriptions that tell us about their history, beliefs, and daily life. Maya society was incredibly complex. They had a sophisticated calendar system more accurate than the one used in Europe at the time. They developed complex trade networks that stretched across Mesoamerica. They created art and architecture of breathtaking beauty and complexity. They had a rich literature of mythology, history, and prophecy, but Maya civilization also had a darker aspect that might hold clues to their collapse. Constant warfare between city-states, elaborate human sacrifice rituals, a rigid class system with extreme inequality, environmental exploitation on a massive scale, kings who claimed divine authority and demanded absolute obedience at their height around 800 CE. The Maya population may have reached 10 to 15 million people, a population density that wouldn't be matched in that region again until the 20th century. But even at their peak, there were signs that Maya civilization was under stress. Increased warfare between cities, more frequent references to famine and hardship in inscriptions, construction projects left unfinished defensive walls built around previously open cities, elite families beginning to abandon traditional centers. Most disturbing of all, Maya inscriptions from this period began to include prophecies about cycles of destruction, world-ending catastrophes, and the return of chaos. It's as if they could see their own doom approaching. This raises a chilling question that I want you to consider and discuss in the comments. Can a civilization become so advanced that it can predict its own destruction? Did the Maya see something in their astronomical calculations or historical patterns that told them their time was ending? Because what happened next suggests that the Maya didn't just collapse randomly. They may have been responding to signs and omens that their sophisticated knowledge allowed them to interpret. Signs that told them their world was about to end. The collapse of Maya civilization wasn't gradual. It was catastrophically sudden. In some areas, it happened so quickly that archaeologists have found evidence of meals left half-prepared, construction projects abandoned mid-build, and royal ceremonies interrupted and never resumed. The collapse began around 760 CE in some regions and accelerated rapidly. 760–800 CE, several smaller cities in the Petan region begin showing signs of abandonment and reduced construction activity. 800–830 CE. Major cities like Quirigua and Copan stop erecting dated monuments, a Maya tradition that had continued unbroken for over 500 years. 830–900 CE. The heart of Maya civilization, cities like Tikal, Calakmul, and Caracol are largely abandoned. 900–950 CE. The last dated Maya monument is erected at Tanina in 909 CE, marking the traditional end of the Classic period. What archaeologists have found in these abandoned cities tells a haunting story. In Tikal, excavations have revealed cooking pots still containing food remains, half-finished murals with paintbrushes left beside them, jade jewelry scattered on palace floors as if dropped in haste, construction projects with stones cut and ready but never placed in several sites. Archaeologists have discovered mass burial sites suggesting that large numbers of people died in a short period, not from violence, but from what appears to be disease or starvation. Many cities show evidence of hasty defensive preparations. Walls built quickly using whatever materials were available, weapons, caches hidden in royal palaces, sacred objects buried, as if for safekeeping, evidence of fires that may have been deliberate destruction of records. The most shocking aspect of the collapse is the sheer number of people who vanished. The Maya lowlands lost an estimated 90% of their population between 800 and 900 cities that had supported 100,000 plus people were reduced to a few hundred inhabitants. Entire regions became completely depopulated and remained so for centuries. This raises one of the most puzzling questions in archaeology. Where did millions of Maya people go? Theory 1. Migration. Some populations clearly migrated. Northern Yucatan cities like Chichen Itza show population increases during this period. Highland Guatemala maintains stable populations. Some groups may have fled to coastal areas or deeper into jungle regions. Theory 2. Death. But migration alone can't explain the massive population loss. Skeletal evidence suggests widespread malnutrition and disease. Some areas show signs of mass mortality events. Environmental evidence points to severe ecological collapse. Theory 3. Social dissolution. The most disturbing possibility is that Maya society simply fell apart. Complex urban societies require constant maintenance and cooperation. If the systems that supported large populations failed, people would be forced to scatter into smaller, sustainable groups. The knowledge and skills needed to maintain cities would be lost within a generation. Some of the most poignant evidence comes from the final inscriptions of Maya rulers. Jasawchan. Kawil III of Tikal. His last dated inscription from 869 C speaks of darkness falling and the end of the count of days. Ruler 4 of Karakol left an inscription in 895 CE that translates roughly to "the great cycle ends, the gods depart, the cities fall silent." Kinich Jenab Pakal III of Palenque, his final monument, never completed, contains what appears to be a prophecy about when the sky falls and the earth opens. In several cities, archaeologists have found evidence of final ceremonies that seem designed to close sacred spaces. Ritual objects deliberately broken and buried, sacred fires extinguished with elaborate ceremonies, temple doorways sealed with stone blocks, royal tombs prepared but never occupied. By 900 CE, the great Maya cities were silent. Pyramids that had echoed with the chants of priests and the proclamations of kings stood empty. Ball courts where sacred games had been played for centuries grew still. Markets that had bustled with traders from across Mesoamerica were abandoned to the jungle. Within decades, the tropical jungle began reclaiming the cities. Roots cracked foundation stones, vines pulled down walls, canopy trees grew through palace roofs. Wildlife returned to plazas where thousands had once gathered. Think about this haunting image and share your thoughts in the comments. Imagine walking through a Maya city in 950 C, just 50 years after the collapse. You would see magnificent pyramids and palaces slowly being consumed by jungle, empty plazas where grass grows through stone pavements, and the haunting silence of a civilization that had simply vanished. What do you think it would feel like to witness the end of a world? But the Maya didn't disappear without leaving clues. In fact, they may have left us a detailed explanation for their collapse, carved in stone and written in their prophetic texts. The question is, are we smart enough to understand their warnings? For over a century, archaeologists, historians, and scientists have proposed dozens of theories to explain the Maya collapse. But recent discoveries using cutting-edge technology are revealing a more complex and terrifying picture than anyone imagined. Theory 1. Environmental catastrophe. The climate crisis. The most widely accepted explanation is that the Maya fell victim to environmental collapse. Climate scientists studying lake sediments and cave formations have discovered evidence of severe droughts between 760 to 900 CE. Some areas experienced rainfall reductions of up to 70%. The droughts lasted for decades. Not just seasons. Water levels in lakes and rivers dropped catastrophically. Agricultural productivity collapsed across the Maya heartland. Archaeological evidence shows that the Maya had severely damaged their environment. Massive deforestation to clear land for agriculture and to provide construction materials, soil erosion that made agriculture increasingly difficult, loss of biodiversity that disrupted food webs, water table changes that affected springs, and cenotes. Maya civilization may have reached what ecologists call a tipping point, where environmental damage becomes irreversible and leads to complete system collapse. Theory 2. Overpopulation and resource depletion. The Maya may have literally outgrown their ability to sustain themselves. Peak Maya population density was higher than the region could sustainably support. Competition for agricultural land intensified as populations grew. Urban centers required massive food imports from rural areas. The system worked only as long as agricultural productivity remained high. Increased warfare between cities may have been driven by competition for dwindling resources. Trade routes were disrupted by constant conflict. Resources were diverted from food production to military activities. The elite continued to demand luxury goods even as common people faced starvation. Theory 3. Political collapse and social revolution. Some scholars believe the Maya collapse was essentially a social revolution. Maya rulers claimed divine authority and absolute power when their promises of prosperity and stability failed. People lost faith in the system. Archaeological evidence suggests some elite compounds were deliberately destroyed. Royal palaces show signs of looting and abandonment. Maya civilization was incredibly complex and required constant management. If people lost faith in the elite's ability to manage the system, the whole structure would collapse. Without central authority, trade networks, food distribution, and urban infrastructure would fail rapidly. Theory 4. Disease and demographic catastrophe. New research suggests epidemic disease may have played a crucial role. Some skeletal remains show evidence of infectious disease. Crowded urban centers would have been vulnerable to epidemic outbreaks. Trade networks that spread goods could also spread disease. A major epidemic could explain the speed and completeness of the population collapse. Malnutrition from environmental stress would make populations more vulnerable to disease. Skeletal evidence shows increasing malnutrition in the decades before the collapse. Children's remains show signs of severe developmental stress. Or Theory 5. The multi-causal perfect storm. Most modern scholars believe the collapse resulted from multiple factors reinforcing each other. Environmental stress reduced agricultural productivity. Food shortages led to social unrest and increased warfare. Warfare disrupted trade and further reduced food availability. Political instability undermined the systems needed to manage crisis. Disease spread rapidly through malnourished populations. Population collapse made it impossible to maintain urban infrastructure. System failure forced survivors to abandon cities and return to subsistence farming. Recent technological advances are revealing new aspects of the collapse. Laser mapping of jungle areas has revealed Maya cities were much larger than previously thought. The population may have been even higher, making the collapse more dramatic. Extensive agricultural modifications that show environmental stress. Defensive structures suggesting widespread warfare. Sophisticated climate reconstructions show the drought was more severe and longer lasting than previously known. Climate variability increased, making agriculture more unpredictable. The Maya faced the worst drought in over 1,000 years. Chemical analysis of bones reveals dietary stress increasing over time. Evidence of population movement and social disruption. Possible evidence of violence and warfare. What makes the Maya collapse truly disturbing is how many parallels it has with modern civilization. Environmental degradation and climate change, overpopulation and resource depletion, growing inequality, and social tension. Complex systems vulnerable to cascade failures. Elite classes disconnected from environmental realities. Some scholars believe the Maya understood what was happening and tried to warn future generations. Their calendar system emphasized cycles of creation and destruction. Late inscriptions contain what appear to be warnings about environmental abuse. Some monuments seem designed to preserve knowledge for future civilizations. This raises a chilling question that I want you to consider and share in the comments. Are we repeating the Maya's mistakes? Do you see parallels between Maya civilization and our modern world? What do you think the Maya would say about our treatment of the environment and our growing social inequality? Because the most disturbing aspect of the Maya collapse isn't just what happened to them, it's what their sophisticated understanding of cycles and patterns told them about the future. They may have left us messages about more than just their own civilization's end. The Maya didn't completely disappear, they transformed. And the survivors carried with them knowledge and prophecies that some believe were meant as warnings for future civilizations, including ours. While the great cities fell, Maya civilization continued in altered form. Cities like Chichen Itza in the northern Yucatan actually grew larger during the southern collapse. They absorbed refugees from the collapsed southern cities, they adapted to different environmental conditions, they developed new forms of political organization, they continued Maya traditions while adapting to new realities. Maya populations in the highlands of Guatemala and Chiapas maintained continuity. They preserved the calendar system and astronomical knowledge, they kept alive the tradition of hieroglyphic writing, they maintained the religious and mythological traditions, they continued to build monuments. Though smaller than before, some Maya groups moved to coastal areas. They became maritime traders instead of agricultural city dwellers, they developed new technologies. Adapted to coastal environments, they maintained contact between surviving Maya groups, they preserved crucial knowledge through the dark period. The most important legacy of the classic Maya was the preservation of their knowledge. Maya scribes created books on bark paper that preserved crucial information. The Dresden Codex, containing astronomical tables and prophecies, the Madrid Codex, with calendrical information and rituals, the Paris Codex, featuring prophecies about future cycles, the Grolier Codex, recently authenticated, containing Venus tables. Maya communities preserved knowledge through oral tradition. The Popol Vuh, the Maya creation story that describes cycles of world creation and destruction, the Chilam Balam books, prophetic texts that describe future events, ceremonial knowledge passed from generation to generation, astronomical observations continued for centuries. What makes Maya knowledge truly extraordinary is their prophetic tradition. The Maya believed history moved in cycles. Each cycle lasted approximately 5,125 years. At the end of each cycle, the world would be destroyed and recreated. Humans could influence the timing and nature of these transitions. Knowledge of the cycles could help people prepare for transitions. The famous 2012 Maya prophecy was largely misunderstood. Maya calendars didn't predict the end of the world in 2012. They marked the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. They saw this as a time of potential transformation, not destruction. The real message was about renewal and the opportunity for positive change. The actual Maya prophecies are more complex and more relevant to our current situation. Maya texts speak of cycles where the sky falls, interpreted by some as climate change. The earth becomes barren, possibly referring to environmental degradation. The waters disappear, drought and water scarcity. The people scatter like seeds, mass migration due to environmental collapse. Maya prophecies describe periods when the great houses fall silent, collapse of political institutions. The knowledge keepers depart, loss of expertise and cultural knowledge. The people return to the forest, abandonment of complex urban civilization. The new dawn rises, emergence of transformed societies. Today, over 6 million Maya people live in Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. They maintain many traditional practices and beliefs. They preserve astronomical and calendrical knowledge. They continue to perform ceremonies linked to ancient traditions. Many serve as the guardians of ancient sites and knowledge. Modern Maya elders and spiritual leaders offer interpretations of ancient prophecies. Frowny face Don Alejandro Cirillo Perez, Mayan elder and head of the National Mayan Council of Guatemala, has spoken about ancient prophecies describing a time when humanity would face environmental and spiritual crisis, followed by a period of transformation and renewal. According to contemporary Maya interpreters, the ancient prophecies contain warnings and guidance for our current global situation. Environmental destruction will lead to social collapse unless patterns change. Complex civilizations are fragile and must maintain balance with nature. Knowledge and wisdom must be preserved through periods of transformation. Spiritual and social renewal is possible even after apparent collapse. Recent archaeological discoveries seem to confirm some Maya prophetic insights. Evidence of previous civilizational collapses and renewals in Maya history. Documentation of successful environmental management practices. Examples of societies that avoided collapse through adaptation and change. Evidence of knowledge preservation systems designed to survive catastrophe. What's remarkable is that Maya prophetic tradition is still active. Contemporary Maya spiritual leaders continue to interpret ancient prophecies. Traditional ceremonies still follow astronomical cycles calculated centuries ago. Maya communities continue to practice sustainable agriculture techniques. Ancient knowledge is being applied to modern environmental challenges. The Maya legacy contains both warning and hope. Warning: complex civilizations can collapse when they lose balance with their environment. Hope: transformation and renewal are possible even after apparent collapse. Knowledge: the importance of preserving wisdom and maintaining sustainable practices. Guidance: the cycles of history can inform responses to current challenges. This raises profound questions I want you to consider and discuss in the comments. Do you think the Maya collapse was actually a transformation rather than an end? Can ancient prophecies provide genuine insight into modern challenges? What do you think modern civilization could learn from Maya knowledge about cycles, sustainability, and renewal? Because the final chapter of the Maya story isn't about their collapse, it's about what their knowledge and prophecies might mean for our own civilization's future. The question isn't just what happened to the Maya, but what the Maya can teach us about what might happen to us. The collapse of Maya civilization isn't just ancient history. It's a case study in how advanced societies respond to existential challenges. And the lessons are terrifyingly relevant to our modern world. When we examine Maya civilization and our current global situation, the parallels are striking. Maya: deforestation, soil depletion, drought, climate change. Today: deforestation, climate change, biodiversity loss, resource depletion. Maya: population growth beyond sustainable levels. Today: global population approaching planetary limits. Maya: elite classes consuming resources while common people faced hardship. Today: growing wealth, inequality, and resource concentration. Maya: sophisticated trade networks and urban systems vulnerable to disruption. Today: global supply chains and interconnected systems vulnerable to cascade failures. Maya: warfare between city-states preventing cooperative solutions. Today: international competition hindering global cooperation on shared challenges. The Maya had certain advantages we might not have. Lower population density allowed for migration to less stressed areas. Simpler technology made local self-sufficiency more possible. Stronger community bonds facilitated collective action. Cyclical worldview prepared them psychologically for transformation. Our civilization faces unique challenges the Maya didn't. Global population with no empty areas for migration. Complex technology requiring specialized knowledge and global supply chains. Individualistic culture that makes collective action more difficult. Linear worldview that assumes permanent growth and progress. Archaeological evidence shows some Maya communities successfully adapted. Forest gardens that maintained biodiversity while providing food-water management systems that conserved resources. Crop rotation and soil maintenance practices. Population control through social institutions. Flexible political systems that could reorganize during stress. Knowledge preservation systems that maintained crucial information. Trade networks that could adapt to changing conditions. Religious practices that promoted social cooperation. Sustainable building techniques using local materials. Agricultural systems adapted to local environmental conditions. Transportation systems that didn't require massive infrastructure. Energy systems based on human power and natural processes. Contemporary societies can learn from Maya successes and failures. The importance of staying within ecological limits. The need for sustainable resource management. The dangers of environmental degradation. The value of biodiversity conservation. The importance of social cohesion during crises. The need for equitable resource distribution. The dangers of extreme inequality. The value of community-based decision making. The need for cooperative rather than competitive approaches to shared challenges. The importance of long-term thinking in governance. The dangers of elite classes becoming disconnected from environmental realities. The value of traditional ecological knowledge. Today, Maya knowledge is experiencing a renaissance. Permaculture practitioners study Maya forest garden Techniques climate scientists examine Maya climate adaptation strategies. Archaeologists document Maya sustainable city planning. Anthropologists work with contemporary Maya communities to preserve traditional knowledge. Perhaps most importantly, Maya prophetic tradition emphasizes that collapse can lead to renewal. Civilizational cycles include both destruction and creation phases. Knowledge and wisdom can be preserved through transformation periods. New forms of society can emerge that are better adapted to environmental realities. Human consciousness can evolve in response to challenges. The Maya story presents us with a choice. We can ignore the warnings and repeat their mistakes, or we can learn from their experience and choose a different path. We can adapt our civilization before collapse becomes inevitable. We can use their knowledge to create more sustainable ways of living. Climate scientists tell us we have perhaps a decade to make fundamental changes to avoid catastrophic climate change. The Maya collapse shows us what happens when a civilization waits too long to address environmental challenges. Maya understanding of cycles suggests that our current global crisis might be part of a natural pattern of civilizational transformation. The question isn't whether change will come, but whether we'll guide that change or be overwhelmed by it. The fall of the Maya wasn't just the end of a civilization, it was a transformation that preserved crucial knowledge for future generations. Their story isn't ultimately about collapse. It's about adaptation, renewal, and the preservation of wisdom through periods of change. The Maya didn't really disappear, they evolved. They transformed their civilization from massive urban centers to smaller, more sustainable communities. They preserved their knowledge through oral tradition, written texts, and living practices. They continued their astronomical observations, maintained their calendar systems, and kept alive their understanding of natural cycles. Today, as we face our own civilizational challenges, the Maya offer us both warning and guidance. Warning: civilizations that ignore environmental limits face collapse. Guidance: transformation and renewal are possible with wisdom and adaptation. Knowledge, sustainable practices, and cyclical thinking can help navigate crisis. Hope: human consciousness can evolve too. Meet new challenges. The Maya example shows us that individuals and communities can make a difference. Preserve traditional knowledge and sustainable practices. Build resilient local communities and systems. Maintain long-term thinking about environmental and social challenges. Prepare for transformation rather than assuming permanent stability. While we've learned much about the Maya collapse, mysteries remain. New archaeological sites are still being discovered. Climate scientists continue to refine their understanding of ancient environmental changes. Contemporary Maya communities continue to offer new interpretations of ancient knowledge. The full implications of Maya prophecies for our current age are still being explored. If this journey through one of history's greatest mysteries has fascinated you, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and have those notifications turned on. We explore the darkest secrets and most important lessons from human history, knowledge that could help us navigate our own uncertain future. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think we're repeating the Maya's mistakes? What lessons from their collapse are most relevant to our current global situation? And do you believe their prophecies about cycles of destruction and renewal apply to our modern world? If you learned something new about this ancient mystery and its relevance to our modern world, hit that like button. It helps us reach more people who are interested in understanding how the past can inform the future. And if you're hungry for more stories about ancient civilizations, lost knowledge, and historical mysteries that illuminate our present challenges, check out our playlist on ancient mysteries. There are hours of content that will completely transform how you see the relationship between past and present. The next time you hear about climate change, social inequality, or political dysfunction, remember the Maya. Remember that they faced similar challenges over 1,000 years ago. Remember that they found ways to preserve what mattered most through a period of transformation. Remember that civilizations don't just end, they transform. The question isn't whether change will come to our modern world. The question is whether we'll learn from the Maya's experience and guide that transformation, or whether we'll ignore their warnings and repeat their mistakes. The Maya left us more than ruins in the jungle. They left us knowledge, wisdom, and a roadmap for navigating civilizational crisis. The question is, are we wise enough to listen to voices from the past and apply their lessons to our future? The great Maya cities may be silent, but their message echoes through time. Civilizations that honor the cycles of nature and maintain balance with their environment can transform and endure. Those that ignore these lessons face the darkness of collapse. Which path will our civilization choose? The Maya have shown us both possibilities. Thanks for joining me on this journey through time and mystery. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and remember, the past is not just prologue, it's prophecy.